Good morning, Team Alabama. Our camera froze, and I'm sorry. Please turn in Hidden Figures to page 67. Read along with me on your Chromebook. A permanent job. The prediction that the end of the war would destroy the economy of the Hampton Roads area proved incorrect. A defense industry boom followed the war, and it lasted decades. Hampton Roads became a military capital. After the war, the Norfolk Naval Base was established as the headquarters of the Navy's Air Command. There's a great fact for you. Norfolk Naval Base was established as the headquarters for the Navy's Air Command. Next came the Army Transportation School in Newport News and the U.S. Coast Guard Base in Portsmouth. In 1946, the Army decided to make Langley Field the headquarters of its Tactical Air Command. And then the following year, the Army Air Corps became an independent branch of the military known as the United States Air Force. The number of people working at Langley dropped immediately after the war. Most people left voluntarily, choosing to retire or take other work. Many women computers left to return home or marry men they had worked with. Engagement and wedding announcements filled the pages of the employee newsletter, Air Scoop. Another popular newsletter feature was Air Mail, H-E-I-R, Air. A listing of birth announcements. The women had to figure out how to balance the demands of family and work on a long-term basis. Some women took time off to take care of their babies, while others quit their jobs altogether. But with the airplane growing even more important in America's economy and its military, it seemed that Langley might always need talented computers. In 1947, the laboratory disbanded the East Computing Pool and sent the white women who had been working in the office to work in specific wind tunnels. All the East Computing assignments were reassigned to West Computing. With the added work, West Computing remained in high gear. It wasn't surprising that Langley wanted to keep Dorothy Vaughan on as a computer.
Hello Kitty license plate, your lights are on. Hello Kitty license plate, your lights are on. Silver cobalt.
Sorry, guys. In 3 years, she had proven herself by handing in error-free work and managing deadlines without complaint. She earned excellent ratings from her bosses and had been promoted to shift supervisor, managing 1/3 of a group that was now made up of 25 women. Specialization. Men often came to the laboratory as junior engineers and were allowed to design and conduct their own experiments. Researchers took the men under their wings, teaching them the ropes. Women, on the other hand, had to work much harder to overcome other people's low expectations. So remember, we were doing facts about the space race, gender equality, and civil rights movement. And this is an example of gender equality. Women weren't given the same rights that men were. Women, on the other hand, had to work much harder to overcome other people's low expectations. A woman who worked in the central computing pool was one step removed from the research, and the engineers, meaning the men, assignments sometimes lacked the context to give the computer much knowledge about the work. The work of most of the women was anonymous. Even a woman who had worked closely with an engineer on a research report rarely saw her name on the final publication, meaning she didn't get the credit for it. The engineers assumed that it didn't matter, and after all, she was just a woman. And many of the men were blind to the fact that a woman might have the same ambitions as a man. Sometimes a computer's work impressed an engineer so much that he invited her to join him working full-time with a wind tunnel group. For the women, this meant an opportunity to get closer to the research and perhaps specialize in a particular subfield of aeronautics. A computer who could not only process data but also understand how to interpret it was more valuable to the team than a pool computer with more general knowledge. Specialization became the key to managing the increasing complex nature of aeronautical research in the post-war era. That's the end. Well, no, I'm sorry, it's not. Page 70, the sonic boom. Here's a picture of that page. Hopefully you're reading on your Chromebook with me. By the 1960s, black and white women at Langley worked together on computing assignments. And that's a picture of that happening in NASA in the 1960s. Sonic boom. Many of the Langley engineers shared a dream. They wanted to design an aircraft capable of flying faster than the speed of sound. And the women at Langley were no exception. They dreamed of this exciting possibility, which was seeming less far-fetched by the day. To pursue this dream, in 1947, a group of 13 employees, including 2 former East computers, were sent to the Mojave Desert in the western part of the United States to establish a high-speed flight research center. Their mission? To build the fastest airplane in the world, one that could fly faster than the speed of sound. The speed of sound is about 760 miles per hour. There's a great fact for you. The speed of sound is about 760 miles per hour. The exact number varies depending on temperature, altitude, and humidity. Scientists used to think that flying faster than the speed of sound was impossible, but they were wrong. Mach 1 is the term of something moving at the speed of sound. There's another vocab word or fact for you. Mach 1 is moving at the speed of sound. When an object is moving this fast, the air molecules in front of the object can't get out of the way quickly enough, so they become compressed and form a shock wave. That shock wave is the noise we hear from the crack of a bullwhip or the firing of a bullet. Scientists weren't sure what would happen to a pilot or his plane if he flew at Mach 1. Some researchers thought that the plane or the pilot would be destroyed by the power of the shock wave. Others disagreed. There was only one way to find out. Try it. Now, who would try that? They're not sure if they're going to survive, so it takes a very brave person that's going to try to fly at Mach 1. On October the 14th, 1946, pilot Chuck Yeager flew over the Mojave Desert in a NACA-developed experimental research plane called the Bell X-1, and he pierced the sound barrier for the first time in history. The plane caused a loud noise, a sonic boom, just like the shock wave from a bullet and the bullwhip. But the pilot and the plane were safe. The female computers on the ground verified the data transmitted from the instruments attached to the X-1 on the record-breaking flight. And here's a picture of Chuck Yeager on that flight, and you'll find that on page 72. At the Mojave Desert facility, the computers who helped with this experiment had the chance to do significant work and get credit for it. They were promoted from computer to the higher position of junior engineer and were named as the authors of research reports, a necessary first step in the career of an engineer. And for women, it was an extraordinary achievement. It meant that the whole world would see that she had contributed to a worthy piece of research and that she was an important member of an engineering team. Dorothy Hoover, another black woman who worked in West Computing, was the first African-American woman to leave the computing pool and get a chance at the research job, working directly for an engineer. She had earned an undergraduate degree in math from Arkansas Agricultural, Mechanical, and Normal College, and a master's degree in mathematics from Atlanta University. And she taught in 3 states before coming to Langley in 1943. She was excellent at abstract concepts and complex equations. She had been assigned many of the most challenging problems and always submitted flawless work. As a talented mathematician with an independent mind, Dorothy Hoover was a perfect addition to any research team. Her visibility with engineers increased with her promotion, and she answered the computer's questions and understood complex math so well that she sometimes knew more than many of the engineers in the lab. The section leader. Dorothy Vaughan was an excellent leader within the West Area Computing Pool, and in 1947, one of her bosses got sick and was out of the office for a month. The next year, the boss fell ill again, and then in early 1949, Dorothy's boss began to act strangely at work. She suffered a mental breakdown and was forced to leave her job. This tragic incident left the computing pool without a leader, but the engineers at the laboratory decided to choose Dorothy to be the temporary head of the entire section. This was the first time an African-American woman had been assigned a management role at Langley, At the time, it was unthinkable for a man to report to a woman. Men were always ultimately the people in charge. Women who had an interest in management were limited to heading a section in one of the computing pools or a division with female workers, but they always reported to a man. For Dorothy, the new job was a lot like being at the head of the high school classroom and reporting to a principal who was usually a man. It would take Dorothy Vaughan 2 years to earn the full title of section head. The men she worked for held her in limbo, and the laboratory had never had a black supervisor before, and they may have delayed making what seemed like a groundbreaking decision. Dorothy, however, was patient. Okay, there's a great fact for you. They delayed giving her the promotion, but she was patient. Her promotion was made official when a memo circulated in January of 1951. Effective this date, Dorothy J. Vaughan, who has been the acting head of West Area Computing Unit, is hereby appointed head of the unit. Dorothy took on the new responsibilities with confidence. Many of the women in West Computing knew she was the best candidate, and so did many engineers. In time, her bosses realized it too. History would prove them all right. There was no one better qualified for the job than Dorothy Vaughan. And here's a picture of Dorothy Vaughan, and that's on page 75 in your book. Dorothy Vaughan, after she retired from NASA, NACA is renamed to NASA, and you know it as NASA now. That's the end of Chapter 9. We're going to stop there for today. Have a great rest of your day, Team Alabama. Please make sure you've added 5 facts for the day, and you should be getting close to your 50 facts. If you would, please go over that 50 facts and up to 70, and that gives you a little bit of extra credit and some cushion if you don't do as well on some other assignment. Don't forget, please remember to keep doing your Achieve 3000s. Have a great rest of your day.